Donald Trump just managed to hit a new low, guys, even by his own disastrous standards. After what was already an embarrassing week that left his political image in complete tatters, Trump somehow managed to make it much worse for himself. During an event where he was supposed to be honoring veterans at a Washington Commanders game, something that clearly clashes with his long history of, disrespecting those who've actually served, he was met with a deafening wave of boos, guys. The crowd's reaction was brutal and unfiltered, right in his face, and you could practically see the anger boiling up behind that forced grin of his. Now, what you've got to understand here, this is building up, guys. I mean, it's not, again, it's not something which was out of the blue. You could see this potentially happening before it happened. Now, it was a perfect reflection of, how far his public support has collapsed. We'll dive into that clip in a second, guys. But before we do, please take a second to like and subscribe if you appreciate seeing Trump held accountable. Because honestly, moments like this say more about, his crumbling relevance than any poll could. Even though the one the other night did as well. And to really set the stage for how deeply unpopular he's become, let's start with Gavin Newsom, who summed up Trump's sad political downfall better than anyone.
You guys have awakened up our immune system. We're dealing with an invasive species by the name of Donald Trump. He is an historic president, however. Historically unpopular president. Under every key category. I mean, you can't even make this is hard to do. On every issue, on the economy, on tariffs, on immigration, on health care. Historically unpopular president. And he knows it. And he knows it. Why else? Why else did he make that call to your governor? Why else did he feel the need to rig the election before even one vote was cast? That's just weakness. Weakness masquerading as strength. That's Donald Trump. And he had a very bad night on Tuesday.
Let's just take a second to really remember just how deeply unpopular Donald Trump is, guys. He's become so unpopular, it's unbelievable, because that's what makes his latest public humiliation so significant. The reason that moment of him being booed to his face matters so much is simple, guys. It's a raw reminder of how far he's fallen, even among people he once claimed to represent. And yet, unbelievably, there are still a few Democratic senators toying with the idea of, giving in to him, to a man who just dragged his party through one crushing electoral defeat after another. I mean, these losses weren't accidents, guys. They were the direct result of his chaotic, self-serving leadership and his authoritarian, obsession with control. Trump isn't some misunderstood political maverick, guys. He's an ego-driven person whose popularity has collapsed to historic lows. So if, Senate Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, think there's any wisdom in bending the knee to this man right now, they're deluding themselves, in my opinion. They should be taking a page from Gavin Newsom instead, standing firm, calling out Trump's corruption and narcissism for what they actually are, and refusing to legitimize a man whose only real cause has ever been himself, only but himself. Because make no mistake, guys, Trump's obsession with self-promotion is all-consuming, and everyone can see right through it. Just listen to what he had to say before walking into that stadium, guys. The arrogance, just practically oozed out from every word he was saying.
I'm going to swear in a lot of great people right now. I'm a little bit late. I just want to say, was that the greatest flyover ever? Nobody's ever done a flyover like that. So these are the best pilots in the world. They say whoever flies Air Force One, the best pilots. And we just saw that. That was great. So we're going to have a good game. Things are going along very well. Country's doing well. The Democrats have to open it up. Thank you very much, everybody.
Donald Trump was supposed to be there to honor the brave men and women who served the country, but to true form, he turned the moment into yet another narcissistic, spectacle about himself as always. Instead of showing even a hint of humility or gratitude, he started rambling on about how beautiful his private jet was, how amazing the flyover was, and how it looked and how everyone supposedly adores his plane. I mean, it was textbook Trump, guys. Tone deaf, self-absorbed and utterly disconnected from the purpose of the actual event. And let's not forget, this was the same stadium packed with people who were moments away from booing him into oblivion. He's so confused by his own ego that he's reportedly pushing for the new stadium to be named after him. I mean, it's unbelievable, this guy is. Everything has always, kind of revolves around Donald Trump, his name, his image, his fragile sense of importance. So when the boos came crashing down, it felt like, poetic justice, to be honest. Karma finally catching up with him in, surround sound. So the crowd didn't hold back and the noise was relentless. Watching him squirm under that, wave of rejection was satisfying, it to put it mildly. A reminder that no amount of gold-plated vanity can drown out the sound of a nation that's just had enough. Honestly, that, chorus of boos might just be the most satisfying soundtrack to Trump's downfall yet. It's honestly something nice to see, watching Donald Trump's smug face, confidence crumble in real time as the entire stadium, drowns him out with boos. You can practically see the panic flicker across his face as he realizes he's completely lost control of the crowd. He's thinking, wait, they're booing me? It's like that kind of reaction on his face is getting louder, even with the microphone turned all the way up. His voice was swallowed by the, sound of pure rejection. And that right there, guys, is all the, pure rejection of the people. I mean, Senate Democrats should need to hear that the chorus of boos in the voice of Americans saying, it's enough, because let's be honest, what exactly would anyone be, caving into by giving into Trump's political win right now? Nothing. This is a man who has led his movement from one embarrassing defeat to the next. Voters just made it abundantly clear the other night. They're sick of the corruption, sick of the chaos and his cruelty. Americans are begging their leaders to protect the healthcare, to defend democracy and to stop, enabling the kind of extremist dysfunction that Trump thrives on. He is without question the most unpopular president in modern history at the moment, a man whose administration is unraveling while he can barely stay awake in the Oval Office. I mean, the so-called master negotiator can't even manage his own image, let alone the country, It's amazing the art of the deal wasn't written by, him for a reason, guys. Trump was never made a real deal in his life. And now we're supposed to hand this exhausted, fading, where can you start? Chuck Schumer, he needs to wake up and listen to the people. The message couldn't be clearer, guys. America, despite what Trump stands for, every time he steps into the public view, he's met with outrage, not applause. People are ready to fight back against the authoritarian rot he represents. So I believe you should stop hesitating, have a spine, take a lesson from Gavin Newsom, for example, who's showing exactly what it looks like to confront Trumpism head on, unapologetically and with conviction, because Trump isn't some, political force to fear anymore. He's going down by the day. He's a cautionary tale being booed off the stage because of his own making.
Democrats are the ones keeping this government shutdown going. Do you agree with the strategy?
Well, the bottom line is the President of the United States canceled a meeting with the two leaders because of public pressure before the government shutdown. He decided to have that meeting. He didn't invite you and others in, which for Donald Trump in and of itself is remarkable. He just instead sent out a Truth Social with Trump 2028 hats. And then he went golfing that weekend before the shutdown, shortly thereafter. He had no interest or energy into avoiding this government shutdown. He has no interest or energy to end it today. He's the president of the United States. As someone who's an chief executive of a state larger than 21 state populations combined, the fourth largest economy, you have a responsibility in that role to convene, to bring people together. That's why there's a government shutdown, period, full stop. What the Democrats, though, have done, and I give Jeffries and Schumer tremendous credit, is they've galvanized people of all political stripes, rural, urban, suburban, on the issue that defines so many problems in so many ways and so many days, and that's healthcare and the anxiety people are about to feel with 100 to 388% in California, up to 388% increase in premiums and costs. So I think they've been right, but Donald Trump needs to act like the president, not just be president. He needs to do the job.
So there are a lot of repercussions for this government shutdown. Obviously, air travel is a mess. And then SNAP benefits, food stamp benefits for 42 million Americans. As we sit here, the Trump administration is fighting a court order to tell them to pay out full SNAP benefits. Vice President J.D. Vance called the judge's ruling that the U.S. needs to pay, that the Trump administration needs to pay these SNAP benefits. He called the ruling absurd. He said the administration is, quote, not going to do it under the orders of a federal judge. Now, I know that's 5 million Californians receive SNAP benefits.
5.5, and the difference is in California, they were fully restored in my state through November. That said, they obviously have not been in the vast majority of states. But think about the state of mind of the vice president. Well, how do you square the circle when you go to a prayer breakfast? How do you square the circle? I mean, Old Testament, New Testament. Well, what's the fundamental thing that connects from John to Matthew to Proverbs? It's this notion of hunger. Feeding the poor, the sick, the tired. It's not an option, it's central to advancing God's will. I mean, the fundamental point that we'd be using, because this is what it's about.
Gavin Newsom is showing right now that there are two groups that desperately need that message. First, the Democrats still clinging to outdated politics, the ones content to write, polite letters and timid, op-eds instead of actually standing up to Trump's authoritarian nonsense. Those days are over. The country doesn't need symbolic outrage, guys. It needs real resistance, I believe. And second, the mainstream media, the so-called, gatekeepers of democracy, who are asleep at the wheel. Instead of focusing on Trump's decaying grip on power and his blatant corruption, they're chasing irrelevant, kind of gotcha moments and stories about who follows who on Instagram, while, Trump sits half conscious in the Oval Office. Don't know where he is. He's dragging America through one crisis after another. Cable news would rather just nitpick meaningless gossip instead of focusing on what needs to be. It's a stunning, dereliction of duty, guys. They're obsessing over trivial distractions while ignoring the slow motion collapse of the democratic norms. Trump is not some harmless political figure, guys. He's a threat who's been booed out of stadiums and rejected by voters altogether, yet still treated like a serious leader. People are a bit too timid, in my opinion, to call him out for what he is, a disgraced, power-hungry con man. I'll admit it, watching that video of him being booed is a reminder that public can see through his act. The cult is cracking and the truth still matters. Let that energy fuel real accountability, guys. And always, I appreciate you guys for staying with me till the end. Please hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment on the video. Stay safe, stay connected, and I shall see you on the next one.